All right, so we are recording, and this is the power game. It's one of my favorite things to talk about to Shiftco members and to entrepreneurs in the conscious community, because we have a bit of a dissonance sometimes with power and money, because part of why we became a conscious entrepreneur is we want to do good. And what I want to try to help to connect you to is how to bring those two into alignment. We do 2 to 3 events every month. They're open. Most of them are open to the public. On February 13th, we've got an event with one of our partners, Be Local Georgia, and we're going to be talking about when good grows. And then February 27th, we'll be talking about what we call Business Simple. For those of you that you feel like there's not enough time to move the business or to do all the things that you need to do to grow your business, Business Simple is a toolkit for that. So if that feels good to you, join us for that. Now let's jump into the content today. And I want to start first with your definition of power. So there was something about the description of this event that caught your imagination. I'm curious, when you think about power, what do you think about? Who'd like to go first?
I'll jump in. I think power, I think about it from a personal level, like being good with where I am, being happy, feeling powerful that I can take on the world.
So being happy, being good with where I am, and feeling like I can take on the world. Is that a good summary, Kathy?
Yes.
Perfect. One other person want to comment on what you think power is?
I'll go. So to me, power is being authentic and standing in my truth.
Love that. Love that. So everything that was just said, and any of the other things you might be thinking or having put in the chat, that's correct. And what power is the ability to control your thoughts and your emotions and your nervous system. And I use the word control. I used to say manage, but today, with all of the negativity that's in the world and all of the strife that's out there, we really do have to work harder at managing and or controlling our thoughts and managing and or controlling our emotions, because it's really easy to get off track. So in that definition of power, being okay with what I am, feeling good, feeling like I can take on the world, how much of that do you think you're really using? So just kind of put a number in there. When you think about those descriptions that we talked about power, if you have the potential to every minute of every day really maximizing your power, what number would you give it? Go ahead and put that in the chat. And Lisa, if you wouldn't mind helping me out and read some of those as they come in, that would be great. So how much of that power potential, if every day of every minute it's 100%, how much are you actually using?
Several 50s, 20, 25.
Perfect. So there's not a right or wrong. Our goal today is to show you how to get it to 75%. That's where we want to be using this toolkit. Now, I'm going to take you back to a moment in time. I'm going to tell you my moment of time, and then I'm going to have you guys share your moment of time. And my first awareness of that power, the ability to really grab hold of my thoughts and go, this isn't happening. My first conscious memory of that, I was in college and I was an education major. So I degreed in education to be a teacher. That was what my training was in. And one of the classes that we had to take was chemistry to graduate. And I, in high school, was not a smart student. I didn't take the math and science classes that everybody else took. Nobody thought I'd graduate from high school. But so when I got into college and I had to take classes like that, I was really intimidated. So this one chemistry class was one of those professors where, and you know how they are, they're like, by the time we get to month number 1, half of you will have dropped the class. And by month number 2, 75% of you will have dropped the class. And I had waited, I'd heard about this professor, I'd waited until my next to last semester to graduate. So I literally was going into my senior year, and if I did not pass this chemistry class, I didn't graduate. I mean, that was how like intense this was. And I'm sitting in the class, I'm sitting in the front row, and he starts with this spiel about, you know, today 20% of you will drop, and next week another 10% will drop, and by month one 50% will drop, because you can't handle, you know, real work kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there and I was trembling, and I was like, I gotta drop. There's no way I can do this. There's no way I can do it. And I walked out. I was literally headed to the registrar's office to drop and to figure out there's got to be some other chemistry teacher that I can take, because I can't handle this. And something just snapped in me, and I was like, no, I've made it through 3 years. I've been on the dean's list. I've been on the chancellor's list. I've got a 3.7 GPA. Although I don't know science, and I certainly did not take chemistry in high school, I'm going to show this guy that I can do it. And like this feeling took over, and I started, my shoulders went back and my back straightened up, and I was like, yes, yes, I will. And with every step, I could feel this, yes, yes, I will. Yes. And by the time I got to where the registrar's office was, I decided I'm going to the library and I'm going to check out a book on chemistry and I'm going to get ahead of this. And as I was going up the library steps, I happened to look over on the board and it said chemistry tutors. And I'm like, yes, now I'm going to get a chemistry tutor and I'm going to show you. And this sense of I'm going to do it, I'm going to show it, I'm going to do it, I took over. And it was in every cell of my body. And I've never felt anything like that up until that point in my life. And I knew that I was going to do it. And of course, not only did I pass the class, but I got an A-. And he actually called me out at the very end and saying, I hate education majors because you guys aren't real students. But you know, Terry, you blew me away and you did it. Congratulations. And that was one of those senses of, yeah, I got this. So I want you to take a minute, and then I'd love for a couple of people to share a time when you felt that kind of power and you felt it and like, no, I'm doing this. Anybody want to share a similar story?
I can do it.
Go for it, Leah.
So when I all through elementary school, I studied French, and the first time well, it wasn't the first time, but I did a number of exchange programs, and at one point I was a sophomore in high school, and I did an exchange, and so I was sitting at this lunch with my host family, and you know, in the process of the conversation, they said, how long have you been studying French? And, you know, I was a sophomore in high school, and I said, well, since 3rd grade. And they said, since 3rd grade, and you only speak that well? And they laughed at me. And, you know, I'd been taking class 4 days a week for 45 minutes since 3rd grade. So like, what are you going to learn? Not much. Still, I was there and I was doing it. But that stuck with me to such a degree that I used that story in a essay to get into graduate school for French, which I got into. I went to Middlebury and I became fluent in French. And I just felt like, stick it to them now. Like, look who can speak French. So, I mean, obviously I went to graduate school for French for other reasons besides being made fun of when I was, you know, an adolescent, but that stuck with me.
I love it. One
Yeah.
more. Somebody else want to share?
There we go. I got one.
All right.
So for my whole tech career, I butted heads with my executive superiors and eventually my executive peers. I have a very different perspective on things, and eventually I've come to realize now that I also had a really terrible way of filtering out who I partner with. So I would constantly find myself partnered with people that we just did not share the same values. My last executive role as a CTO was the same dynamic. It always repeated, and I fought a lot. And my previous attempts at expressing power in all of these contexts had never really worked, which was stand up, tell people the truth, and say they have to deal with it, and we're going in this direction, or we're going to take this action. And I finally started to access my anger this time around.
Mm.
Instead of just feeling it and then hiding it and not knowing what to do with it, I was like naming it. And I realized I don't want this type of relationship. And instead of attempting to and failing to use my power to change other people, I just called my peer, my CEO, and I said, "Hey, in this meeting, I'm here to announce my intent to resign."
Mm.
And he said, "I had a feeling this was coming." I was like, "Great, cool. So what do you want to talk about?" He's like, "Well, you're not going to give me 2 weeks, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm a CTO. I run the whole product line, and I own like 5% of the company. There's no way I would give you 2 weeks notice. You made me at will. I'm resigning today."
Wow.
I didn't leave the same day. It was an expression of power that got me to the place where we could negotiate an exit. But I needed to end the dynamic, and I did.
Yeah. So I really want to key in on that, because people use the phrase, "I'm taking my power back," or "I found my power." And it's one of the reasons why I call this the power game, because what we're really seeking in our life is a sense of self-control, not controlling others, but we're seeking a sense of, I am the captain of my own ship. And what I've noticed about these stories, and I'm fortunate enough to get to hear them in ShiftCo all the time, and to see a lot of our members have this shift, there's either a decision point or a shift. Either somebody said you couldn't and you decided you would, or somebody was mistreating you and you decided you deserve better. And we could go on and on with that. Or there's a motivation for either, I want to avoid pain or some type of gain. So there's this thing that we have in common. And I've been fascinated with this ever since that moment in college. And I would watch for those moments to appear back in my life, because I loved what it felt that day when I was walking on campus at Indiana University, walking and deciding, no, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this. And Al, something that you said, and Leah, I'd pull yours in as well. A lot of times this is in response to being treated poorly by someone. And I bet if we think back in our lives, it was maybe a boss or a situation, a partner, something in our life, a friend that mistreated us, that talked bad about us, that caused something to shift. What I want to help you do today, and we're going to do it today, you're going to actually experience it today, is to be able to make that shift on command, to make it consciously, and to make a choice in the moment that you are, no, I'm not going to procrastinate. I'm going to work on my business. No, I'm not going to be afraid, even though I am. I'm going to shift my energy, and to give you that sense of power, which is really control over our thoughts and emotions, so you can guide them where you want them to go. That's what we're talking about. Now, in order to do that, I wanted to kind of take a playbook out of some famous athletes, and we're going to look at some of the things that they have in common. So one of the most famous basketball players, Michael Jordan, Lindsey Vonn. If you haven't seen Lindsey Vonn, I use one of her videos all the time to help me reconnect with the power. This wonderful, handsome soccer player who made me very, very passionate about soccer because he's so handsome. Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks ever. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, we'll be watching him this weekend. If you haven't watched the quarterback special that he's in I think it's on Netflix. Wow, it's really amazing. And Diana Nyad, watch this movie, just came out. Diana Nyad, I can't remember the name of it, but wow, powerful movie. And then Serena Williams. So here's a couple of athletes. And I had a moment in 2015 when I was watching Diana Nyad, literally this picture, which is why I put this in here. She swam from Cuba to Key West, and she had tried it like 5 or 6 times before and had never made it. And she made it this time. And I was at a really low point. Actually, it was 2013. It wasn't 2015. Anyway, I was at a real low point because I felt like I was failing. And I was watching her come out of the water and watching she had swam for, I don't know, 2-3 days through this very dangerous channel. And she's, coming out of the water, tired as all get out, shaking and barely able to walk. And I was watching this energy that she had in her. And again, I would encourage you guys to watch the movie. Maybe Lisa, you could put the name of the movie in because I just can't remember. But I was watching her come out onto the shores of Key West, which is one of my favorite places to be as a Floridian. And I've been at this very spot that she was walking on. And I was watching every step, and this resilience was taking over her. 1 step and 2 steps and shaking, nobody touched me, 3 steps and 4 steps. And as I was watching this special on Patrick Mahomes, I was seeing the same thing. And I started to really notice that athletes have the ability to consciously, purposely, and consistently tap into this sense of power. And one of the things you'll notice is they have mantras. So Michael Jordan's was winning is fun. Lindsey Vonn was I can. Lindsey Vonn's story is amazing. She had a horrific injury. They told her she would probably never walk, much less ski. And she said, yes, I can. And she would push herself through it. Patrick Mahomes, his saying is just be great today. It's not, it's not going to be win. It's going to be just be great today. Diana Nyad's was find a way. And Serena, if you've ever seen her play, when she hits, she's like, yes, yes. So I thought, well, maybe it's just the mantra, maybe that's part of the package. And so I started wondering, how do they do that? How do athletes, how did Diana Nyad push herself past all of these obstacles? But the thing that I was most interested in is how do they do it consciously? How do they do it on purpose? And then I started to notice a trend. Some of my favorite successful entrepreneurs had the same ability to overcome failure. Now, this guy who there's going to be some exciting things in the future with him. So this guy has been one of my favorite entrepreneurs for a long time. But what most people don't hear about is failures. He has 3 times more business failures than he has business successes. And for him, he makes everything fun. That's the way he's like, I make failure fun. Like, oh, wow, that was fun. And he has this way, this energy of turning things into fun. Oprah, also one of my favorites. Her mantra is, I'm the master of my fate. Mark Cuban is sales cures all. One of my favorites, a new, relatively new in this last decade entrepreneur is Whitney Wolf. And as a woman who's raised capital, she was turned down probably more than most men with her pedigree. And she would always walk out after they would say no. And she'd be like, you'll see. Not with an attitude, not with you're going down, not with I'm going to show you, but just you'll see. And she's built not 1, but 2 very successful companies. But when it all snapped into place was a couple of years ago. I don't know if you heard the story of these kids that were trapped in this cave for a ridiculous amount of time. And they shouldn't have survived because where they were was completely inaccessible. And I watched the film. I was fascinated when it was happening, and I was watching the news as it was happening. But I watched the film that came out a couple of years ago. And that's when I got it. And the phrase that the guy that's sitting in the front here was their coach. They were on a soccer team, and they had been practicing soccer, and they went by this cave and said, hey, let's go in there. And this coach basically helped them survive with no food. How did they survive? And his mantra that he taught them was fear isn't real. And they would meditate and imagine, 24 hours a day, days on end, weeks on end, you're not sure you're going to get out of this cave after this horrible event where this cave has flooded and the water is continuing to rise. Imagine the fear that they had. And this coach taught them how to meditate on this mantra that fear isn't real. And that's when I got it. I'm like, hey, it is not power as in I'm going to beat you, I'm going to show you, which is what I was thinking with athletes. I thought athletes were able to tap that because they're like, I'm going to show you, right? I'm going to beat you. It's not that. It's actually something more powerful. And the phrase that he said is, I trained my brain to. That's what this coach said in this movie. I trained my brain to, and then I taught the kids how to train their brains to believe that fear wasn't real. And I started literally going back to all the books that I'd read about Richard Branson and the athletes that I'd studied and Diana Nyad and all these things. And every single one of them said the same thing. I trained my brain. Some would say my brain and my body, but they said I trained my brain too. And that's when I realized it's really about the brain. So what are we training? All right. So what are we training our brain to do? Well, what we're training our brain to do is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is when you're thinking a set of thoughts, do you allow those thoughts to go, I can, like those athletes do? Those athletes, those business leaders have trained their brain, not their body. They've trained their brain to basically say, I can do that. I can do that. Whereas other folks who are not training their brain allow the neuroplasticity to build down the I'm afraid. Think about as an entrepreneur, how many times you've thought about being afraid. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid this won't work. What if that doesn't work? What if I can't? Think about how many times a day, a week, a month, this is too big for me. I'm not sure I can do it. Think about how many times a day, a week, a month, you've said that. Every time you allow one of those thoughts to go through your brain, neuroplasticity is making that thought stream stronger. Once I got that, I was like, bingo, I'm going to train my brain to say I can. And that is at the heart. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is how do you train your brain to shift those negative, fearful thoughts to I can, or whatever your mantra ends up being. So that's what we're going to look at. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. So how do you understand your brain and energy? Ironically, I think I stumbled across this by accident, but there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala processes emotions and links them to memories. It affects our memory, it affects focus, it affects our reactions and habits. I like to think of the amygdala as the automatic pilot. It's the neuroplasticity of my old thoughts, my old memories, who I was yesterday, all the times I failed. And that amygdala is like a computer program running us. And it is running us. It's running us more than we would like it to do because it's not helpful, especially when neuroplasticity is down the I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I can't, I can't, I can't. The amygdala, when you train the amygdala to say, I can, I can, I can, yes, I will, whatever your mantra is going to end up being, when you train the brain, the amygdala with that, it actually helps you. But if you don't train it, then if you leave it to just be random, all of your old failures and all of your old thoughts are going to basically, they're running a program. So back to those athletes, back to Richard Branson, back to Oprah, back to Whitney Wolf. All they have done is trained their amygdala through neuroplasticity to say, yes, I can. Yes, I will. Business is fun. We've got this. They're, never say never, whatever their mantra is going to be. All they've done, not that that's a little thing, is train their brain to basically run a new program. All right. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to train your amygdala, get yourself into the habit to pre-program that part of your brain to run a new program. Our little helper in this is another part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is the regulator. It's like a traffic cop. So the amygdala is over here running the program. Let's say the program is, I'm afraid, or I can't, or, I don't know. I'm going to use I can't just because it's simple. So let's say that the amygdala's got that program running us. I can't, I'm afraid, I can't, I'm afraid, I can't. Well, the prefrontal cortex is regulating new thoughts and actions. So what the prefrontal cortex does is, new information. Should I put it back into the amygdala or should I do something else with it? So it's like a traffic cop in your brain and it regulates thoughts and actions. And so if a fearful thought comes up, the prefrontal cortex goes, oh yeah, feed the amygdala. send it over there. Yep, that goes into the amygdala and it makes the amygdala stronger. However, if it's not a program, it's a new program, here's the trick. If it's not the old program, the prefrontal cortex will basically tell the amygdala to stop. Stop. We got new information. Okay. Kind of like picture it like a traffic cop. Whoop, whoop, stop. You guys stop. New information. You guys go. So what I'm going to show you how to do is to activate the prefrontal cortex in such a way that it causes the amygdala to stop, which is what we want. We want it to go into neutral and not run that old program. And then we're going to retrain the amygdala with the prefrontal cortex to get it to believe a new thought. Before I show you how to do that, I want to stop and see if there's any questions or comments before I show you how to do that. Or Lisa, is there anything in chat?
I'm scared.
You're scared. Why are you scared?
That's all. I don't know. That's just what my body's telling me.
Okay, good. So the fact that you're aware of that's good, because part of it is awareness. Any other thoughts or questions about this? And then we'll do it. Now, here's the cool thing. This is not hard to do, but it does require getting a habit in place. So many of you have taken the Prosperity Challenge, and it's included in your membership. There's another one coming up the end of this month. If you're a member, I would highly encourage you to sign up for it because Kelly Marshall is coaching on it, and Kelly's amazing. Kelly is like, I don't know, member number 30, and she's built an amazing business, and she's our coach on Prosperity Challenge. But part of it is using Prosperity Challenge, but there's a very specific way that we're going to do that. What I have found about using the prefrontal cortex, so let me put that picture back up here for just a second, and turning off the amygdala is the first thing I've got to do is I have to clear my energy. And I can actually use my energy, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, to turn the amygdala off and then program the prefrontal cortex with new information to send over to the amygdala. The second thing you're going to do is then move very much into the present, which basically allows that transfer to take place. And then third is you're going to claim your desire or an intention. This is where you could say, I can. That would be the one I would encourage you to use today because I want you to feel it. We're all going to use I can, but you can put any intention in there. And then what's going to happen is you're going to feel your body move into a state of certainty. So we're going to use an energetic protocol to turn the amygdala off. And we're going to have the prefrontal cortex then turn the amygdala on and say, new information, new signal, I want you to receive this, because it's the traffic cop, right? Prefrontal cortex. You're going to move into the present to just pause for just enough for that to happen. And you're going to feel it in your body and your brain. Then you're going to claim a new desire. And today we're going to use I can. And then you're going to feel your body move into a state of certainty. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. I'm going to walk you through the steps. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to get the amygdala to stop and for the prefrontal cortex to turn on, because the amygdala is like that program. It's just running, right? It's just like a fan running in your house. It's just running. It's just running. It's not thinking about whether it's good or bad. It's just running you. And we need it to go into neutral so that we can give it new information. And we need to turn the prefrontal cortex on to be a new, because it's going to give direction to the amygdala. The way that you do that is you're going to acknowledge whatever thoughts are in your brain. Make sure you're on mute when you do this. And the acknowledge is very important because it's the fastest way to turn the amygdala, to put the amygdala in neutral and turn the prefrontal cortex on. And what you do is you use the prompt. The truth is I feel, and whatever comes up, comes up. And you got to say, I feel. I don't want you to say I am. That's a whole nother story you'll learn about in Prosperity Challenge. But you're going to say the prompt. The truth is I feel. And pay attention. Don't do it yet. But I want you to do it out loud. So make sure you're on mute. When you do it out loud, what's going to happen is you're going to feel like this, almost like a coasting for just a minute. It's like, huh, that's weird. That's the amygdala turning off. And when you feel that kind of coasting, that's the amygdala, it stops. And then we're going to program. And now the prefrontal cortex is awake now. And it says, wait a minute, new information. We've got some incoming information. And the prefrontal cortex wakes up and starts looking for new information. So I'm going to have you do the steps separately, then we're going to put them together. So I want everybody to say, the truth is I feel, and whatever comes up, comes up. It can be tired, frustrated, whatever. So I might say, the truth is I feel tired. And whatever comes up, comes up. Say it out loud, and then you're going to feel that sensation. So we're going to do it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. The truth is I feel tired. Now, did you notice like that little pause? That is the amygdala turning off. And now your prefrontal cortex is basically in charge. And the prefrontal cortex goes, hey, we got new information here. Sit tight. Don't go anywhere. Let me see what's going to happen next. Woo. Yeah, if it's pretty cool sensation, right? So now we're going to breathe. And now what the prefrontal, we're going to breathe a certain way. And I want you to do it the way I'm asking you to do, because the prefrontal cortex is now in charge and the amygdala is off. It's a good thing. The prefrontal cortex says, okay, what you got, body? What's going on there? What do you need? And so we're going to breathe in 4 times, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Feel how that feels. What the prefrontal cortex just did is it turned on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what we want to have happen. The parasympathetic nervous system is rest and reset, right? So that's a good thing. Breath number 2. Feel all that stress coming down. Amygdala is still off. Basically, the prefrontal cortex is like, oh yeah, everything's great. Oh yeah, wonderful. Breath number 3. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And breath number 4. Nice and big. Notice how much less stressful you feel. So amygdala is still off. Prefrontal cortex is like, hey, everything is great. Turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, what's happening right now is your mind and your body are now pumping in serotonin and dopamine into your bloodstream, which is now fueling the amygdala to restart, but to restart in a more positive way. It's like, oh, it's almost like clean slate time. And now I've got the serotonin coming in, and now I've got the dopamine coming in. And then you move to just kind of moving into the present so that we can set a new intention. Okay, so we're going to do it together. I want to describe again what's happening. This is just clearing energy. This is just step 1. Then we're going to do the programming part. This is the resetting. So when we do the truth is I feel, the amygdala goes from whatever gear it's been running you in into pause, into neutral. That's what we want. We want to basically switch it off. And the prefrontal cortex, when we go, the truth is I feel, amygdala goes off, prefrontal cortex goes on. Then when you take the 4 breaths, the prefrontal cortex, who's our commander right now, says, okay, turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. It's great. Everything is wonderful. There's nothing but joy around me. Send some serotonin and some dopamine over to the amygdala. Amygdala, it's time to get happy. Wow, this is wonderful. And then you just move into that, and by the way, all of this is just step number 1 here. You move into that present moment, and then we can do the programming part of it. So we're going to do it together. We're going to, step number 1, we're going to clear the energy and reset this brain part of us. So acknowledge the truth is I feel frustrated, whatever it is. Say it. Notice that pause. Whoa, feels good. 4 breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Breath 2. Breath number 3. Breath number 4. Parasympathetic nervous system is running. Prefrontal cortex is sending signals to the amygdala. Be happy, be joyful, be calm. Everything is great. Now move yourself into the present And we take that second step in the present just as a pause. So, and I like to kind of lean back a little bit and just kind of feel that calmness, because when we program the amygdala, which we're going to do here in a minute, we want it to be as calm as possible, as quiet as possible. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds of silence. Try to see if you can maintain as much. And if for some reason the chatter starts, just breathe again. Here we go. All right, now we're going to claim our desire. I can build this business. I want you to repeat after me. I can build this business. I can generate demand. I can be abundant. I can train my brain. I can focus. I can do this. I've got this. Yes, I can. Now notice how you feel right now. We're going to add a couple more. And now we're going to shift to some I am statements. I am abundant. I am powerful. I am successful. I am a leader. I'm a successful entrepreneur. I'm a champion. I'm powerful. I am successful. Notice how that feels. You've just moved your body into a state of certainty by turning off the amygdala and stopping the old programs that aren't you anymore, activating the prefrontal cortex, sending new signals to the amygdala that we now anchored with all of those things that we just said. That is what athletes do. They have their own way of doing it. I'm just giving you the way that it works for me. And they do it every single day. Every single day, they have a way to clear their energy, get themselves present, focus on what I'm going to do today, claim that new intention. I can. I am. Patrick Mahomes is doing it right now. He's literally getting up going, I'm a champion. I'm the MVP of the Super Bowl. We're going to win the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter if I throw an interception. I am a champion. I'm a champion. I'm a champion. I'm a winner. I'm going to do this. Every single one of those guys is basically programming their brain right now with the exact same thing that you just did. And they're moving every cell in their body into a state of certainty. And when you move every cell of your body into a state of certainty, the amygdala starts building a new program. And now that new program is the program of a champion, not the old you. Take a breath. Questions or comments about that?
There was a question about what if you're, at the moment, you are feeling positive.
Great. So I love that. When you do it and you are feeling positive, that just means you've got some of the training that you want in the amygdala. Double down on it. Like if it says, hey, the truth is I feel happy right now. Like, hey, I don't want to just feel happy. I want to feel ecstatic, and just like double down on it, because then we can make that program even stronger. Great question. Other questions? And then I got a few more things to add to this.
So Terry, this kind of goes to me, like I call this more affirmations. Is that kind of where you're going when you're talking about claiming the desires in a different label? I am this,
Yeah,
how would you articulate differently?
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. Whether some people call it intentions, some people call it affirmations. It really doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want, but do it consciously. I am programming my amygdala to know that I can do this, not hope I can do this. I am training my amygdala to know that I can do this.
Okay.
Other questions? That was a great one.
And Terry, when you say train the amygdala, basically it's that path, that point at that why that it takes the I can't, I can, and you're training it to go toward the positive track.
Yep. And I'll put that up here. We're basically, neuroplasticity is your brain training your brain. And that old program of our past failures, our past us, the things that we couldn't do, all that type of stuff, I'm afraid I can't, yada, yada, yada. We basically have to build a new neural pathway through repetition. But the fastest way to do it, and I call this Success Accelerator, the fastest way to do it is to turn the amygdala off before you try to program it, activate the prefrontal cortex, use the chemicals of serotonin and dopamine to strengthen it. That's the fastest way to program that through neuroplasticity. Then your brain starts to believe that new program and you're on your way. Other questions or comments? And then I got a couple more things to add. Okay, so for those of you that are ShiftCo members, the Prosperity Challenge, it's 8 weeks. It's basically this, but we teach you all these different ways to make it a habit. And Kelly is coaching on it. It's truly amazing when Kelly does it. If you really want to work on that, I would encourage you to sign up for that members only program and go for it. So now the last thing I want to introduce, because I got this several years ago, but then I found myself kind of still getting off track. And I want to talk a little bit about why that happens. And I call this the illusion of goals. When we set a goal for ourselves, and I have big goals. Anybody that knows me knows that I have big goals. And I have big goals every month and every quarter and every year and for my whole life. And lots of times I don't hit those goals, and that doesn't feel good. And we have this misbelief that the goal and hitting the goal is going to make me feel good. That's the illusion. It's not the goal that feels good. What feels good is tapping into this power that we just did. That's what feels good. And we assume that achieving the goal is what makes us feel powerful and good, but it's not. That is very fleeting. That Super Bowl trophy, lasts for maybe a day, maybe a week, and then it's like, next goal, right? It doesn't last. What we're really trying to get at is activating this sense of power, regardless of whether we hit the goal, where we have it day in and day out. Because what actually feels good, I call it a power high, is when we're tapped into that power. Unfortunately, we assume that to access that power, I have to hit the goal. And you don't. And I want to help you flip this switch. I call it the power high. I want you to flip the switch where you're not dependent upon the goal. Another thing I learned from watching that special on Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, loves to win. There's nothing about him that, Tom Brady was the same way, loves to win. But what they learned to love more than winning is absolutely giving it their all. When Patrick Mahomes says, if I know I did my best, I gave it everything that I had, win or lose, I'm okay. And I heard Richard Branson say the same thing in his memoir. He talked about, I know that particular business didn't work, but I gave it everything I had. I brought all the resources I could, and it just wasn't meant to be. I'm okay because I know I gave it everything I had. So it's not the goal that activates the power high. It's really this pursuit. And I call this turning the power switch on. We want to turn on that power switch on command. Anytime I wake up in the morning and I'm not feeling like a champion, I do that process I just told you. And I'm like, I'm not getting out of bed until my power switch is on, because today I am a champion, and I do those 4 steps that I just described, and I get myself into the power state, and then I go in and I brush my teeth and have my coffee and all the stuff we normally do. But I turn the power switch on. Anytime throughout the day, I lose a client, somebody, gets mad about something, and I feel that old story coming up. Oh, nope, turn the power switch on, and I run that same program, and I know exactly what to do. And so that's what I want you to start to do. Shift your mind and your energy first, just using those 4 steps. And you'll get the recording of this so you can practice it. Claim a clear goal or intention. Once you reset, going, okay, I'm going to do this. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Whatever that intention is, whatever the mantra is, doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want to call it. Claim it after you've reset, and then focus. So if you just spend a little bit of time moving into a state of certainty intensely, just 1 to 2 minutes, letting that marinate in you and visualizing it. I picture, you know, this house that is my dream house. I picture myself on stage, you know, all these things that I know are in my future. I just picture it. And I really let my body feel this new program. I feel it. I feel that certainty rise, and I focus it in my body, and I allow that certainty to fill every cell in my body where I'm feeling it. And that doubt is being dissipated and it's being replaced with total certainty. That's the power high. You also can create a power mantra. I can, you know, pick something. I like to call them a mantra, in a power mantra in particular, just because I've seen all these athletes, they have a mantra, and Richard Branson has a mantra. So that's what I call it, but call it whatever you want to call it, an intention, an affirmation, but create one that's your on switch one. Like it's your go-to when you know you're in a total state of certainty. Mine's I can, and you're feeling that, you know, energy. Create it and then retain it as you focus on your goal, because it's not the goal or the outcome, it's the alignment to this power. And the power is about turning the amygdala into something that's helping you rather than blocking you. And if you think about when we lose the access to power, like let's say we had it, you leave here today and you're like, I'm conquering the world, I've got this. And then we lose it, it's almost always because we attach to the goal. So since it's almost a Super Bowl, I'll use an analogy. And let's say I'm a star quarterback and I'm trying to, you know, score a touchdown. If I start thinking, if I go from, yes, I can, to, oh, I need a touchdown, I have to have a touchdown to win, I have to win to be okay. If that shift starts to occur, we're going to lose it. Because when the power shifts from inside to needing the goal, we're in deep doo-doo. We lose our power. So when we think we can't have or create the goal, that's when we lose all power. And if you watch the games, the two teams that ended up in the Super Bowl, if you watch the games right before this, again, I'm a football fan, so it's easy to do that. The quarterbacks in particular of the two teams that made it to the Super Bowl, the teams they played were better than them. The difference was those quarterbacks needed the win to feel powerful. Let me say that again. The Baltimore Ravens, love that quarterback, but he needed the win to feel this power. And as a result of it, he threw horrible passes and they lost the game. Same thing with Detroit. Detroit's quarterback needed the win to feel powerful. Horrible throws, interceptions, fumbled balls, the whole bit. Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes felt their power on the inside. They didn't need the victory to have it. So that's what you're really training your mind to do, is to not need the goal, but to be able to shift your power, just like we just did in this session. You're basically training your brain to focus where you want it to go. And that's all I've done, guys. That's why I'm incredibly confident today. I wasn't always confident. And it's probably only been in the last year when I really felt the ability to, where it's like game on all the time. Yes, I'll show you. Yes. Here we go. We got this. Like, it's really been in the last year when I felt like I'm like at 95, 98% right now. And I feel it, but not because of some magic potion or some magic tool. All I've done is I trained my mind and my energy to focus on my goal and on that intention. That's all. I just did it day in and day out, every day, 1, 2, 3 times a day. Anytime I'm not feeling powerful, boom, I pull that back out. I do my ABCs, I reset. I feel that sense of certainty, and here we go. And you just concentrate on that focal point. You know, yes, I can. This is my goal. Yes, I can. We're going to hit that. Yes, I can. And when doubt or fear kick in, and they will, use your inner power, activate that on switch, and return yourself back to that single point of focus. Add the mantra, like, you know, try different mantras until you find the one that works, because it's not the goal, it's the alignment to the power. That's the key. And it's really just a sense of doing it again and again and again and again. So I'll wrap up with this, and then we'll have a few more minutes to take questions after I pause. Again, you're welcome to attend any of these events. If you're, of course, in SHIFCO, you attend all of our events. If you're not yet a member, These are community events that you can attend. February 13th will be with Be Local Georgia. It's a virtual event. It's going to be great. Nathan Stuck is hilarious and he's a lot of fun. And we're going to be talking about strategies to grow your impact. February 27th, we'll be talking about Business Simple. I look forward to having you guys, work with us and grow your good in the world. So I'm going to hit the pause and see if there's any questions.